Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Please welcome the President of Ireland, Mary McAleese. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a wonderful honour for us to have a president here today. The theme of her presidency is building bridges, which she's been doing wonderfully over the years, and she's a fantastic ambassador for Ireland and for ourselves. We're also proud of her. But another really wonderful thing, because I don't need to say too much, because we all know how wonderful she is, but she has another wonderful thing. She has a fantastic garden back at home in Arsenal. I've seen it on the website, and it's just stunning. So it's lovely to have a president who actually knows what we're actually talking about, you know, and what we love and what we're passionate about. Upfront, more on we're doing a GIYer will to an alarm, you know. Le reach on fat body when we need chop and low, Mick Kelly, Hart Port Arda, Victoria Quirrell, not in a chop, continue. I was in Yishin, on a drama Kayla. I was in Yishin, GIYer Port Arda. I was in Shin, GIYer Ireland. I was in Ish, I was in our mask, Cahoy Wage, on the Master Rish. I've been reading winter na herring, here on top of the herring. Come on, Guya Piggle, the Grip, the Oakron, Dean Yusuf, Fodger Road, the Oakron, Dean Yusuf, Oakron, the herring, where we'll get these.
Come on, you're doing good. While you're all in here, the weather is doing its best, isn't it? It's sprinkling. God's little sprinkler system is just doing its best for all your winter vegetables, right? It's good to be here today, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Big thank you to Michael for the invitation to open this, the second National Promote Yourself Conference. And at least I have 3 conferences today. I've just come from one, I'll have one later on this evening. The first one I knew a little bit about, community nursing, not as a community nurse, but because as a recipient of community nurse services. Later on I'll be going to one on renal transplant, about which I know very little, have no, thankfully, thank God, no direct experience, though many people do. But this is something I know something about. And I was terrified, I have to say, this morning at the nurses' conference that I start talking about manure, you know, and chipping potatoes. And because this is something, thank God, I do know something about. Because not only do we have a wonderful garden in Arsenal, we're on a fabulous garden that is about, we hope, fingers crossed, very soon to get organic status. But that supplies all the vegetables and all the flowers and everything for the house. But a garden that you won't have seen on the website is my own family garden, my own home in the west of Ireland, where we have a great garden, and Martin and I humped 1 entire tonne of well-rotted manure to try and improve the soil quality, and so we can talk carrots to you if the cows come home. But it's great to be here because this movement just means so much to us. And I can't emphasize enough how much it means. I belong to that generation of city kids, 1 generation away from the farm, like a lot of people. My memory of going to my grandparents, whether it was in County Down or in a sheep farm in County Down, or whether it was in a very small, tiny little farm in the west of Ireland, that my grandfather always used to say that he had enough space for 2 cows but enough water for 200. My memory of that is probably very similar to yours. You know, you arrive down at Granny's, there'd be the chickens, of course, running in and out of the house, and she'd put her eye on one of them, and in just a flick of a wrist, won't even begin to describe to you what would happen, but it was a pretty horrific scene for a few moments, feathers flying, and the next thing, that fella would be in the pot like that. And then we'd be sent out, you know, with the shovel, the spade out to the garden to get the spuds that would go in after the chicken and to get the carrots and the cabbage. We didn't know what packets were in that house. She didn't know what packets were. There were very, very few shops. And actually, as my neighbour subsequently said to me, when many years later Martin and I made my grandparents' home, our holiday home, and I would be running in out to Carrick-on-Shannon maybe twice a day, an old neighbour said to me, I thought I was doing him a favour by offering him a lift. And he said to me very sarcastically, he said, I noticed you were in Carrick 3 times today. He says, if your grandmother was in Carrick 3 times in the year was the height of it. Very telling. So there was 2 different lifestyles, right? And what happened? Somewhere along the line, we dropped the baton. Because in my grandmother's generation, she would have known, and all our grandmother's generations would have known, from their parents and their parents before them, growing your own food is what we did. They didn't have to be told to grow it yourself. It never occurred that there was anything else to be done except grow it yourself. So they grew what they ate, and they ate what they grew. And everything was in a cycle. Everything was in a cycle. So then we dropped the baton. City life took over, the slickness of it all, the handiness of the packet, the handiness of the shop. And it seemed a kind of a long wait, between planting your potatoes in the spring and putting them on the dinner table in July. And we just kind of lost patience with it all because we became time poor. There was a market survey carried out on behalf of the board BIA that said something that's really very telling. It said that the time poor consumer is veering towards convenience and instant gratification. That was us, wasn't it? That was us, that's the way we went. And then life changed very, very rapidly again as we came to terms with just the stark realities of recession, of unemployment, of indebtedness, after that period of rapid growth and nearly full employment. And that kind of consumer giddiness through which we just lost touch with things like value for money and time, and what we could do with time. And one of the great things about all the people here is, and everybody who's involved in this movement, is you know me too well that nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever give you as good value for money as the seed that is sown in your own garden. Nothing. And that, because it's not just the joy of seeing it grow, it's not just the joy of cutting it and using it, it's the gathering around a family table, it's sharing good healthy foods with your kids, it's swapping them with neighbours, it's just being part of something that teaches you the value of food and the value of time in a way that our so-called convenient and fast lives really allowed us to drift into forgetting. Now the days of the vegetable garden are back, the days of the allotment, they're back. As these times give birth, thankfully, along with all sorts of anger and disappointment, they also give birth to a new kind of can-do mood. And it's a mood beyond anger, beyond disappointment, because part of the new kind of spirit of the times, the new kind of zeitgeist of the times, is it's captured in this movement, in this grow it yourself movement, in the human need to connect, with the values and the ways of living that were sustainable, stable, rooted, not bogus, not transient, but that are life enhancing, that are family and community oriented. And there's just something innately honest to me. I use that word quite deliberately, but there's just something innately honest, isn't there, about chilling your own potatoes, planting them, waiting, watching, and digging them. It's the loveliest thing as I've had the joy of watching my own kids go out, and dig the spots for the dinner. And they're just watching their faces, as the lovely white potatoes come out, or the lovely blue potatoes come out of the soil. It's and then the discussions around the table about taste, about flavour, the pride in them, all of that, or picking the black currants, or snipping the come again lettuce, or making being able to be proudly say that you made that, the rhubarb sorbet, or swapping your pears as we did this year with our neighbours who have fantastic, I have to say, wonderful sweet plums that we didn't. And the new conversations that it opens up, the new friendships that are made. There's just a satisfaction that the word satisfaction doesn't even get, that is packed into that. That is so different from opening the packet or opening the tin. We'll all continue to do that, I'm sure, in some way or another. But this gives us just a connection with our food, with our family, with our neighbours, with our ground, with our place, that is just so very, very special in many ways. There's hard work. You know that really too well, isn't there? A lot of hard work. And patience. And always the prospect of failure. My carrots are a very good indication of that this year. Didn't manage to do it again this year with the carrots. We have really bad soil where we are. Dreadful soil, dog it is. And we're battling, to improve the soil quality all the time. We really thought we had it nailed this year, but no. Carrots defeated us once again. We are going to nail those carrots. It kills us. We are really going to nail those carrots. And it's amazing actually how it does get to you. We just got to get them. And well, we have these things called weather, we've got soil, we've got pests. They introduce that remarkable, wonderful capriciousness, don't they, into everything we do, the random factors. But that's part and parcel of the life of the apple gardener. And once your back gets used to the mowing, the digging, the composting, and the manuring, and the fighting with the carrots, there's just all that excitement. There's the pleasure, there's the pride. I think pride's a very important part of it. And there's the sharing. And there's just that wonderful sense of fulfillment of knowing that what you've grown is good. It's good for you, it's wholesome, it's a great hobby. And there is, in a very real way, a reintroduction to this thing called time and what it means and how we use it. And you, of course, have proven here, in a very special way, what friendships can do and what structure can do. Because really, the generation that learned from their parents and their grandparents how to do this, when the baton got dropped, it got dropped hard. So those of us who wanted to lift the baton again, we needed a bit of help. We had to go to the books. Granny's gone now. So we had to go to the books, we had to go to the internet, and we had to turn to organisations like yours, and thank goodness there are organisations like yours to help us, to guide us, give us help, encouragement, information. And so you have managed to create kind of a new neighbourhood for us of people who share their ideas, their seeds, their produce, the online communities who help one another, keep in touch with each other. That kind of web of connectedness that has lifted the baton again and allows us the prospect now of just allowing that moment, that time when that generation when the baton got dropped, to regard that as a kind of a blimp, something we will, not look back with pride, but something we learned from, and now we reconnect. Now each of us have the batons in our hand, and it's our job to hand it on. But we have now something that probably my grandparents and great-grandparents didn't have. We have a movement, we have an organisation, we have a structure, we have a focus, we have people who do the research, we have people who can indicate to us really good ways of doing things, who can drag in from all parts of the world and all parts of your experience new ideas that we can fold into our lives and use well. So that, we have families now where there's growing things in an apartment or a window box, an urban garden, a rural farm, whatever it is. They now having had the experience of what happens when you do drop the baton and the loss that drifts away and drifts out of your life. I think we probably have, hopefully now, the start of a new sense of stewardship about what we are about. It's introduced us and it matches, and it's a perfect match for a time when we're much more conscious, much more educated about recycling, about composting, about all that care for the environment that we got careless about with devastating consequences. So this movement feeds into, in parallel with that growing education of all of us, of green awareness and eco-awareness, and importantly, an awareness that says we're not spectators here, we're actually active participants, and we can choose to be positive active participants, or we can make really bad choices that impact not just on us, but on the world around us. And so the rewards from growing things yourself, they're very individualistic at one level. There's the fun, the taste, there's the success, there's the failure, there's the problem solving, there's the planning to do things better, the skills building, there's the economizing, the living more economically, there's the embedding of a culture of good habits and family, things that are good for us as individuals. But they also layer up into things that are good for us as a community and things that are good for us as a country, as a society. They're just simply good for our world at the end of the day. It was Jonathan Swift, I think, who said in Gulliver's Travel that he had an admiration for people who could make 2 ears of corn or 2 blades of grass to grow in a place, a spot of ground where only one grew before.